Hello, speech pathologists. I am so excited because today we're going to talk all about ways to find a balance and create a smooth end of the school year for all my school-based speechies. Now, let's be real. You can apply a lot of these things to your role as a speech-language pathologist, even if you're not a speech-language pathologist. You're an educator, you work in the medical field, you work in private practice. Wherever you are, there are going to be valuable lessons here in terms of making sure that you cultivate the best life-work balance for you. As a school-based speech pathologist, it's my intention to make sure that I am sharing ways that I have learned through mistakes I've made or through other speech pathologists, how to best create the most balanced and smooth end of my school year that I can, so I'm focused on being present with my clients, my students, and the staff that I work with as we celebrate another year ended, progress made, and all of that. We know the end of a school year can be arguably a very stressful time, sometimes the most stressful, the most overwhelming, because you're wrapping up all kinds of loose ends. This year in particular for me, I had 5 open assessments up until the last 2.5 weeks of school. I was still completing like IEP paperwork on the last day of school. And some of the moments I found myself really frustrated that I couldn't be as present with my students and doing all the activities, the end of the year activities with them, because I would be in IEP meetings or I would be writing reports. And so I had to figure out, how can I still enjoy this? And then I wanted to share it with you. The first way that we can create that balance and make sure that we are still honoring ourselves as humans first, SLPs after, is to prioritize play. Now, I know that we stress the importance of play and language development and human connection with our clients and our students, but what about for us? It's still just as important for us, and it's very valuable to make sure that we're carving out times on a regular basis to play. You can have family game nights, you can go out to the park, anything that helps you find that creativity, that inspiration, and ultimately that fun, where you're also taking off your SLP hat and you're just enjoying time as you. Play really allows for necessary breaks to focus on something else. And during that time of play, when you have been feeling stressed about other things, or maybe you're trying to process information, you allow your brain to do that. So I know for me, a lot of the time when I take time outside of work, outside of just anything, and go to the park and play smash ball or have a family poker night with my family, I find that I can wake up the next morning, or even after that time spent doing that, that my brain feels rested, and then I can go back and focus on what I need to. My second tip for you, don't stop collaborating. The end of the year brings on all kinds of tasks, right? And we start feeling like, oh my gosh, my to-do list is just growing and it's not stopping, and I'm checking things off, but then 3 more things get added. Yeah, I know that feeling. But we don't want to stop having those human connections, collaborating with our staff, because we're still a service provider. We still have students on our caseload. We want to make sure up until that very last day that we are providing for them. So when we keep that communication open with our teachers, with the paras, with other service providers, we're really allowing ourselves to continue to have that open door for support, not only for our students, but for those other staff members, and also for ourselves. Because when we do that, we are allowing those moments to check in, even on a personal level, even just to keep that human connection, thriving when we're in a moment of overwhelm. Sometimes it's really helpful to have those outlets, to have those people to go to. So keep the collaboration going. Okay, my third one, and I love this tip, take time to organize something. Maybe organize your therapy materials. This is a really good way for me to still be kind of focused on work stuff when I'm at work, but to take a step away, again, creating a space for my brain to focus on something other than the demands of my to-do list, but still feel productive so I don't get anxiety about not focusing on my to-do list. Does that make sense? When I take time to organize things like my speech materials, my speech room, sometimes it allows me to just think through things that maybe I was having some writer's block with in a report, and I'm sitting here looking at the toy that maybe I've been playing with that specific student, and I'm like, oh, aha moment, this is what helps with their interaction. I should write this down. Another plus to this is it allows you to start to feel ready to kind of close one chapter of, in terms of the school year's ending. I'm shutting the door here. And when I come back at the beginning of next school year, I get to come into this organized space or this organized cabinet. And it just kind of helps you feel a little bit grounded. It helps you feel more a part of the environment that you're in. So I love that tip. I do that tip often. My fourth little hack here for you, be intentional with your to-do list. Like I said, this to-do list of yours at the end of the school year feels like maybe it's growing a little bit more quickly than it usually does. You know, you take one thing off, a few things get added on, and you're like, is it ever going to end? You will get there, okay? But rather than trying to get, you know, all these things knocked out in a day, maybe only giving them like small pieces of your attention where really you should be focusing more, and then it maybe stresses you out even more because you're like, I can't focus on everything. Stop. Try and prioritize like the 3 top things that you need to get done each day. That way you can knock those things out, or maybe it's 2, maybe it's sometimes even 1. That's okay. But prioritize those things and say, when this gets done, like I am solid, I've had a successful day, and I'm not gonna be stressed out tomorrow. I'll get to the next, you know, 1, 2, 3 things that need to be prioritized. Maybe you get through those 3 things really fast and you're like, okay, I have time for, you know, I'll add on 1 more, and then I'll add on 1 more. I like to keep 2 lists. 1 list that I can write like everything that needs to be done. This is the list that when things keep kind of coming up or I get an email about something I need to do, I add to that list, my long-term list. But then I keep a short-term list where I write those 3 tasks to prioritize. As I cross things off of that list, I then can add more short-term tasks from my long-term list. Lists are great, I love them, but I don't like to allow them to stress me out more. So that's kind of how I manage that. My last tip for you, celebrate your accomplishments. This is arguably the most important piece here. Take time with your students. When you're really focused on being present with them, celebrate all the hard work they've done. I work with preschoolers, so sitting down and having a conversation with them about, oh, it's the end of the school year, what did we work on, isn't always the easiest because they're really focused on like the fun thing that's happening right now or in their classroom later today. And so we'll focus on why that's fun. You know, you get to do this because we were in school for a whole 9 months and you worked so hard on this sound or on your language or whatever it is. And so make sure that you're at least at their level, meeting them where they're at, celebrating those things. Maybe you're talking about it. Maybe you're picking out a favorite activity of theirs or letting them pick the activities for the last week of sessions. Or if it's already your last week, you're almost done, go into the classrooms and celebrate them. I really love when speech therapists make certificates for their kids at the end of every school year, like a, yay, you did it. You made so much progress. You did so well. It's so meaningful, and the parents get to acknowledge that with them too when they go home. And don't forget to share these successes or any wins you had over the year with your team members, with your school staff. A lot of schools do, you know, end of the year parties. Like, bring those things up. I know it's an exhausting time of year, and sometimes those end of the school year parties are like, oh my gosh, can you believe we did it? But it's like, yes, like we're so grateful we did it. Let's celebrate why, and like list reasons why. Maybe you list reasons why you're grateful for your team. Or maybe you list things like about specific students where you're like, they did so well with this. We did so good, you know, figuring out what made them, you know, motivated intrinsically, like whatever it is. You can find the smallest things to celebrate that will lead you to find the biggest things to celebrate, and they're all worth celebrating. So make sure you do that. Celebrate your efforts. Remember, as a school-based speech pathologist and a speech pathologist anywhere, there are going to be, you know, those seasons of heightened activity, of maybe more overwhelm, more demand. So when you find yourself in those seasons, at those really busy seasons, it's really important to find ways that can decrease your stress and that help you find balance. So that way you can be more present where you're at right now and enjoy what you're doing every day. I'm celebrating you. I'm so proud of you. And I hope you found this helpful. Be sure to find other resources linked below, and I'll see you on the next video.